Hello and welcome to our Leadership Voices series. I'm delighted today to welcome Susie Braam, Head of Innovation in part of the UK government and co-founder of Yellow Cat Innovation Consultancy. Susie, how are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm really good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, over the
Absolutely.
last, over the last 12 months or so, we've seen a lot of changes in the way we all work together, a lot of changes in the way we're engaging with people in the organization, physically and then virtually. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you've noticed people in your team and across the organization responding to the changes that have been brought to the workplace by the pandemic.
I guess, the last 12 months or so has been, quite a change for us. So we had, a relatively small number of people who worked from home before COVID. That did present sort of new challenges and opportunities for people. And I did see a real variety of responses from both people I manage and other people, colleagues and friends elsewhere, in the organizations. There were people like myself. So, I'm a mother of, two young boys, and I spend my days typically before COVID, running, it feels like, running to do the school run, to get the train, to make, from meeting to meeting, back home. And actually, for people like me, it gave me the gift of time. I suddenly had 3 hours extra a day, and I'm extremely fortunate to have, a nice house to live in. So, for me, actually, it gave me some really valuable sort of space. And I know many other people felt that and appreciated that as well. I don't think anyone particularly, not many enjoy their commute. So there were plenty of people like that who enjoyed that. But I did see many other people really sort of struggling, actually, and some of it I just hadn't anticipated at all. So I was aware of people that I worked with who lived in like a flat share situation. So people in their 20s moved to London fairly recently, in a flat share situation. So they were like stuck in their bedrooms all day. If they were on calls, very little space. And also people who perhaps were living with people that they perhaps wouldn't choose to live with ideally, or have relationship issues with. So I was really sensitive to that and aware of that. I think the thing I saw, Joe, that really sort of surprised me that I hadn't anticipated, though, was how difficult some people found it just not being in the office, how much they associated the office actually in their work as like a really core part of their identity. Having that sort of taken away from them, like quite so suddenly in the way that it was actually, was something I saw people struggle with. And I guess, from my perspective, initially, I found that quite difficult to relate to because I guess I felt quite comfortable, well, there's my work, and I can continue to do my work from home, and there's my home life, and, great for me because I can make that all work much better now. But for other people, that wasn't the case at all. Their work and they saw the office as very much part of their work, was all wrapped up in their identity. And it was very interesting to see, and I initially struggled to respond to that and to recognize that, I would say.
It's really interesting. Thank you. I think you've articulated there what a lot of people have experienced. I wonder, as a leader of a team and as a leader in the organization, what steps have you taken to support people through these, particularly through the challenging side of working from
Yeah.
home?
Well, I mean, in those so the first thing I would say, it was just always being sensitive to people, individuals, personal situations. And actually, if we didn't already know them, because perhaps we didn't, and that was pretty revealing in itself. But, if we didn't already know each other's home situations, learning about them pretty damn fast was really important. And being sensitive to that. Not being, judgmental and just being respectful, and encouraging, team members to be like so. The other thing, though, I would say, for me, there was this journey that I individually went on with it as well, in terms of, so I spoke about, some of the people who found it sort of challenging to their sense of sort of identity, and I just couldn't relate to that at first. And it did take me some time to sort of really recognize and understand what that was. So what were the drivers for their behavior? Because what I actually saw in those very first few days was, there'd been a clear sort of, directive, to work from home. And what I actually saw was some people actually going into the office despite that directive. And my gut reaction to that, was I was irritated, actually. I was, I sort of thought, well, why have they gone against what they've been asked to do? It's not safe for them. It's not, they're putting other people at risk, because obviously the COVID situation was spiraling at that point. And I kind of thought, oh gosh, they're full of their own self-importance, that they feel that the office is not the lights are going to go off completely if they're not physically there. And, it took me a while to sort of, I was having a conversation with them to understand, why did you go in? To understand what was going through their minds. And what I learned through that conversation, and I had to make a really, deliberate effort, not to approach that conversation in an accusatory manner. I did have to be clear that, this isn't what we're meant to be doing, and these are the reasons why. So providing clarity around that, but understanding what was it that actually drove them to do the complete opposite of what they've been asked to do. And it was this sense of, well, I feel I can't contribute unless I'm physically in the office, like literally keeping the lights on. And so there was some time there for us to then reflect on, well, no, let's look at the work we're doing. Which aspects, do you think are really important? Perhaps are there aspects you don't think are so important? Why is that? So just looking at what we were doing, really focusing on priority, and reinforcing how that work that we're doing from home is contributing to the goals of the organization. And also just, I think, reinforcing the importance of the role they could play in keeping, each other safe by staying at home, not by going into the office.
That's great. Now, you talked about this being kind of something that is still ongoing, but would you say that you've seen any kind of, well, either tangible or indeed intangible results that you could kind of point to say, well, doing this made this difference?
Yeah. I would say certainly that, reframing the team and how we engage and our purpose, and relating that purpose quite explicitly to the top priorities of the organisation, it's something I've always tried to do, but it's so easy to let that slip. But I guess, just reconfirming and actually regularly checking in again on that sense of why. So, actually now every Monday, when we have our like priorities check-in for the week, the first thing we look at actually is a slide that reminds us of what our vision is, and what our specific contribution is to that. So, it reframes the conversation about what are our priorities for the week ahead, in that context. One other thing I would say, Joe, that I noticed as well, and this is something, that for me plays a lot into sort of, culture in an organization, is, I did observe, as the sort of restrictions loosened slightly, over the summer, one of the things that worried me at times is, I saw some people flocking into the office, because they attached more importance to being physically in the office, perhaps standing around the water cooler and having a conversation, networking, and they attached more importance to that and felt that would have more impact on their career progression than actually, focusing on, having an impact. And I guess, the question I'm sort of asking myself, and, I think organizations should be asking themselves is, is this something actually that the culture of the organization encourages? The challenge, I think, for leadership here is asking some of those difficult questions. Are we seeing, if it's that or something else, what behaviors are we seeing? And is there something that's like culturally systemic in the organization that's actually incentivizing those behaviors?
Thank you so much, Susie, for joining us on the Leadership Voices today. It's been a pleasure to have you. There'll be links in the description to the Innovation Beehive, to my profile and to Susie's profile. And yeah, look forward to seeing everyone on a future video. Thank you again, Susie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Joe. It's been a pleasure.